You're listening to the Film Yappers, the podcast where two film buffs with too many opinions and just enough credentials dive deep into the movies you love. The ones you hate, the ones you pretend to have seen, or the ones you are ashamed to admit that you love. From cult classics to fresh releases, they break down what works, what doesn't, and why it matters. One reel at a time. Dr. William Wells, intellectual historian and culture critic, is joined by his co-host and independent filmmaker Ethan Korpinen. Yappers, take it away.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Film Yappers podcast. I'm your host, Bill Wells, and I'm
Bit of a
joined.
hesitation there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did you forget your own name?
I forgot my name. Forgot my name. I'm joined with my co-host, Ethan Korpinen,
Glad to be
um,
here.
filmmaker extraordinaire.
Okay.
And we are tackling one of my favorite movies, Sunshine from 2007. This is a film that was directed by Danny Boyle, known for Trainspotting, 28 Days Later, and Slumdog Millionaire. So, Sunshine is a haunting blend of science fiction, philosophy, and psychological drama, along with a few moments of absolute terror. Set in the mid 21st century, the film follows the crew of the spaceship Icarus, humanity's last hope to reignite the dying sun. The ensemble cast includes Cillian Murphy as physicist Robert Capa, Chris Evans as the pragmatic engineer Mace, Rose Byrne as the pilot Cassie, Michelle Yeoh as the botanist Corazon, Cliff Curtis as the psychologist Searle, and Hiroyuki Sanada as Captain Kaneda. Together, they're a group balancing scientific precision with profound moral pressure. As they approach the perilous point of no return, they intercept a distress signal from their failed predecessor, Icarus 1, which had vanished several years earlier. Against protocol, the crew diverts course to investigate, an act that begins unraveling their mission and their sanity. Accidents, miscalculations, and moral conflicts accumulate. Kappa, the physicist, and our protagonist, must weigh cold utilitarian logic against human emotion as crew members begin to die one by one in pursuit of the greater good. The story explores how intellect, faith, and survival instinct collide when the fate of an entire species rests on a handful of imperfect individuals. It's more than a space adventure. Sunshine is a meditation on light, sacrifice, and the limits of human reason, an existential reflection on what it means to face the end of everything with awe, courage, and love. I would also add that several movies share some of the setting, the themes that we see here. I'm thinking of movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Solaris, Interstellar, and probably most of all, Event Horizon. Ethan, what do you think about how this movie was received? In the sense that it was essentially built as a blockbuster, and yet it really didn't gain any popularity until long after it came out.
I don't know.
Why do you think it didn't take
It's
off?
definitely not uncommon for an original non-IP science fiction movie to kind of bomb or collapse at the box office. It's kind of sad, but it's kind of the reality. Every couple of years or so, there's, this non-IP um science fiction project that comes out, and it's actually, I think more often than not, they typically don't do very well at the box office. It's unless there's some like established name behind it. Not saying Danny Boyle isn't an established name, but I don't know if his name, sells as much tickets as like someone like,
Yeah.
there's a reason that Interstellar made its money back. And, unfortunately, I think with this, yes, you do have a lot of like A-list actors attached to this, but you have to remember this was, Chris Evans, this was pre-Captain America. Cillian Murphy didn't really have the kind of cult fandom that he does now due to like Peaky Blinders and stuff. This was pre-Peaky Blinders, so
Mhm.
Cillian Murphy, I think, alone didn't have like that much star power
Now
yet.
he was a superstar in Ireland even back
Sure,
then
sure,
because
right.
he probably had 20 movies under his belt at that point.
Hmm.
But you're right, is nothing like his stature today. I mean, Oppenheimer
Right.
and
I mean, he's an Oscar winner now.
he's an
Yeah,
Oscar winner.
sure.
Yeah.
And the Oscar goes to Cillian Murphy.
This is the first Oscar win and nomination for Cillian Murphy.
I think it was you that mentioned that we had another major talent that could have been in it.
Yes, yeah. I was doing some research on IMDb trivia uh, during my second viewing of this film because I showed this to my parents last week, and they both really enjoyed it too. Um, and I saw that Oscar Isaac auditioned for a part. I don't know if it said which part specifically. I think it might have been for Chris Evans' part. But I was thinking,
Oh
when I was
man,
reading that factoid, just like he would have been really good in the role of Harvey, the guy who ends up becoming the replacement captain.
communications officer and
Right.
second in command.
Right. Because it is weird that, like, I think everyone in the cast, except for one person, is like someone you recognize from something. And I was watching this, like, I cannot place that guy to save my life. And I looked at his IMDb. The first time I just quickly scrolled through it and I'm like, I have not seen this guy in anything. I can't even think of his
Right.
name right now. I
Yeah.
looked it up like a couple minutes ago before we started recording, and it's already left me. Like he's kind of that forgettable. It's like
Garrity, right? Is it?
something Garrity. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot his first name
Too
already.
too bad, dude. I hope you're not watching this right now.
Yeah, if so, I'm sorry, and
Actually, even the movie didn't like him because
yeah,
they point out to him, you're a communications officer. What
Mhm.
good is a communications officer with no
Right.
communications? So the
Yeah,
reception was mixed,
yes,
but
yeah,
people
yeah,
have come around. I would also say that about a movie we'll probably mention a few more times, Event Horizon.
yeah.
That movie flopped when it came out, and now you hear people say it's one of their favorite movies. And I think that Sunshine is a order of magnitude better. Even though I do like Event Horizon, is very creative, but I mean Sunshine is just so much better of a movie. It's 10 years later, so
Right.
it's definitely better effects and things like that.
Mhm. Well, something I want to bring up too is, I was like 6 years old when this movie came out, so there's no way I would have heard of it at that time. I didn't really go to the movies frequently unless like my parents took
Sure,
me. I would only
sure.
see like, but the thing is, when I showed this to my parents, when I first told them about it, they had not even heard of this movie. they were, I mean, they were really glad that I showed it to them, but they were telling me like, had you not, shown this to us or recommended this to us, we probably never would have sought this out because we hadn't heard of it.
I mean, Boyle has always kind of been an independent movie guy.
Right. It's interesting you say that about Danny Boyle being kind of like an independent like
yeah.
auteur, right? This is probably his only like blank check movie that he's ever done. This is
Mhm.
easily his most ambitious
Yeah.
project, just looking through his filmography. He doesn't really do a lot of like tentpole type of movies, and I think it's by far the biggest budget he's ever had to work with. I think it's the only one he's done that's gotten close to surpassing the 100 million, mark.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think unfortunately because it bombed, he's never really had another chance to make a movie like this, which happens with a lot of directors. They sometimes get a blank check opportunity, and when it doesn't work out, they're put in what's called like director jail, and they have to basically make low
Well,
to
yeah, they've got to
budget
make
movies
some
for the rest of
movies.
their life,
That's
and it's
right.
kind of
That's right.
sad.
Or you can be Francis Ford Coppola,
And sell the winery and make Megalopolis.
make
Yes.
Megalopolis, and then everyone can spend the rest of your life laughing at you and
Yeah.
forgetting that you ever made anything good.
Yeah, they can laugh at him all they want, but what they should really do is
Go back to the club, bear it all, and stalk the kind of people that you enjoy.
Fine. I will.
We've got some really interesting characters.
yeah.
We've got Kappa, who is very shy, non-assertive,
Yeah, he doesn't have
but
a lot of lines really for the
no,
first hour of this movie. I think has maybe 10 lines of dialogue in total.
probably
Yeah,
that's true. He does have his video letter.
that's right. I guess the scenes where you have kind of the ensemble like all in the same room,
He
he's
doesn't
very
have
quiet and
nobody
speaking into
has
the
many lines.
background,
This is not a talking movie, to be
for
honest.
sure.
It's the dialogue is fairly spare, and it only is just to move the plot forward,
Hmm.
and explain what's happening. So, yeah. Uh, I know we're a little divided on this, but Chris Evans plays Mace, who is
Yes.
just a jerk. I think he's just a mean guy, a bully, and someone who is used to getting his way. And for some reason, he feels a little threatened by Kappa, and he focuses kind of a lot of animosity on him. Very, very early, very early. But you have a different take. That's
It's weird
fine.
because the first time I watched this, I kind of agreed with you, and then I watched it with my parents, and his first interaction with Kappa, you kind of get the impression, okay, this guy's kind of a douche, right? He's kind of a jerk, because like they get into some altercation at the very beginning. We don't really see like what
Well,
like.
he gets angry over him taking his email connection
Oh,
time.
I see. Okay, yeah,
That
because
yeah,
the
so
scene just starts in the middle of
it's
like them
very
kind of
yes,
like
it's
cackling each
very
other. You don't really get the context of.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. He talks to Cliff Curtis's character, who's kind of like the crew's like psychologist, right?
mhm.
He's like a therapist for the
Yeah,
crew,
that's what he
and
is. Mhm.
he kind of like puts him in this simulation that it basically creates a virtual. It's almost like a
It's a
live.
holodeck from Star
Right.
Trek.
It's
It's a
it's it's
holodeck.
almost like VR without the headset, And
Right, right,
he's
right.
in this like I think he's in a forest and then they switch it to a beach, but it's basically the closest thing that the crew members have to like being on Earth or feeling like they're at home. It just kind of calms him down. And then he goes to apologize to Kappa. Not really though. He just goes like, I came in here to apologize. And then there's this awkward silence, and then Kappa just goes like, "Was that the apology?" And then Chris Evans is like, "Yeah." He's like, consider it accepted then. And then it's like that wasn't really an apology. You just said I came in here to apologize.
Yeah.
So that interaction kind of gives you the impression this guy's going to be a problem. But the second time I saw it, my parents mentioned to me, because I mentioned early on, like this guy's going to be a jerk, just wait. And they were like, Ethan, I don't think he's that big of a bully. I think he just kind of is he's thinking logically. He's kind of one of the only members of the group that's not letting emotions get in the way of making these really difficult decisions, right? Which that often happens. But he's kind of the one that reminds people like, hey, the priority is to deliver the payload to the sun. Icarus One disappeared 7 years ago. It is really not that it's not that pressing of an issue to make a detour and make a pit stop and see how they're doing just because there's a distress signal going on. So I see that.
I get what you're saying, and I think that you're right that he is one of the voices of focus on the mission, don't let anything distract you. But the way he makes his case is so angry,
Right.
and I would argue kind of he sounds a little entitled.
Fair. Okay.
You
Kind
know,
of self-righteous a little bit.
yeah, a little bit of
Yeah.
self-righteousness and so to me it was just his character came off very off-putting in
Gotcha.
that way. But that's not a criticism of Chris Evans. It's his character.
Yeah, I will say he has a very distracting wig in the first 20 minutes. Like his hair is kind of long and scraggly at the beginning.
And the
It
beard.
is kind of distracting where you're just like, dude, like, get a haircut.
And get a haircut, Mace.
I do think his character kind of does redeem himself by
Oh, for sure,
he
for sure.
definitely puts his disagreements with Kappa aside at the end and
He
cooperates
does.
with
He
him.
does. Probably my favorite character in the film is Searle, Cliff Curtis's role, and I
Oh,
thought
okay.
he does just an amazing job with kind of a subtle and maybe a little unhinged
His
character.
character's kind of weird. Yeah.
Biggest cliche in the world is a crazy psychologist. Biggest
Okay.
cliche in the world. But he's not crazy. It's just that he really, on one level, he is concerned about different things
Mhm.
than the rest of the crew. So that's one thing. He seems to be very aesthetically minded. He wants to know what the captain is experiencing in the middle of him facing a life or death
Right.
experience, and he's like, what do you see? What do you look? And it's very
He
strange
presses him. He like
approach.
asks him several times
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
yeah.
sequence, and
Please
he's like
tell
he's
me, what
facing
do you
death.
see? What do you
Yeah.
see? But it's like he has become, and his introduction is very early.
Right.
Like in fact, is he not the first character
I believe
sitting and
so.
watching the
I
sun?
think that's the
In
opening scene, the opening
Yeah,
shot,
yeah. So
because the movie opens up a year into the mission. This is not like Interstellar where you open up on Earth and get the whole setup with
right, right,
people
right.
like getting on a spaceship and getting ready to leave. They're already in space when the film opens. That's but yeah,
And
I wanted
he's
to ask you about that. Does he, because he's very drawn to the sun. Like it's almost like I almost get the sense that he's a bit of like an adrenaline junkie. Like he gets some sort of like high off of like just being
Yes,
exposed to it.
yes. He is
Yeah.
reacting. He's reacting the same way that William Hurt, his character, reacts in um, altered states to
Okay.
longer and longer experiences in the sensory deprivation tank. I think it draws inspiration from that, which again, that is so clever and different and interesting. The idea that someone wants to bathe in sunlight. He tries to describe this a couple of different points, to the other crew members that it's like you're floating in light, and he's taking these greater and greater risks as he allows the ship to let in more and more light, because of course if you were exposed to the full brunt of the sun's light and radiation, you would die. It would kill you. But he's cranking down the shield so that he could experience it more and more. And then that sort of is a whole character arc for him. But at the same time, he's very compassionate. He's fairly level-headed.
Right.
He approaches the different crises that the crew faces. He he deals with that in a very almost stoic way. And when we could I hate spoiling the different elements of this movie, but when he is sort of facing his end, he is totally calm and not flustered at all. He, makes a really heroic decision and accepts that. So, like I said, he's one of my favorite characters. Cliff Curtis gets the Oscar for for this one. Benedict Wong, who is another crewman. I think he's the navigator, probably the chief navigational officer.
Yeah, I believe so.
Plays kind of a more of just a tragic role. He's a guy trying to do his job, and things get complicated, and he makes a very serious mistake that's going to cause some people to die. He very early sort of becomes dehumanized in a way, to the extent that the other crew at first they're just like, well, he's he's out of his mind now because of this mistake, and because of that, do we put him out of his misery? Do we need to put him out of his misery because we're running low on air and
Yeah.
that sort of thing? So there are lots of really interesting things in the film that are pretty grounded scientifically. One thing that was important is they had Dr. Brian Cox, not the actor, the science communicator and astrophysicist, as a consultant for the film, and they they really wanted to make sure that everything was scientifically plausible. There weren't any major mistakes in how things you would expect to be on a ship like that, and I think they nailed it. The oxygen garden is a huge onboard garden that's essentially scrubbing the CO2 out of the air. You have to have some kind of technology for that. In Event Horizon, they used what are known as, in science fiction at least, scrubbers, which take the CO2 out, and you're able to continue having fresh air for an extended amount of time. Of course, they're going to wear out at
Right.
some point, and they don't last forever. But a better solution is to have something that could go on indefinitely, like plants, which is, they essentially serve that function ecologically for Earth. They recycle the CO2 into oxygen. The shield that protects the ship, that again, that is, from what I understand, a very old design, maybe going back to the 70s, when they imagined ships being able to use, well, if it's the project I'm thinking about, the Orion project, they would detonate nuclear weapons one after another to propel the ship through space,
Mhm.
and the shield would protect the ship from, radiation and, that sort of thing. We have a character who we haven't really gone in depth about. We're kind of saving that for a moment in a minute, but we get to see visually what the effects of the hypergravity around the sun would have
Yes.
on a person. And that is visually, it's one of the most interesting things in the film. And when we think about a movie like Interstellar, they don't show in any stylized way what it's like going through a black hole,
Right.
or but we really get the feeling gravity is really well illustrated, I think, in the film,
Mhm.
especially in the climax.
Right. I
And
mean, I don't know if like I'm trying to be very careful here. I don't know if like for a fact that they shot those scenes with that character with that in mind, but that is an interesting theory. That's what I'm trying. Like, I
oh,
don't know if the filmmaker ever came out and said like Danny Boyle ever came out and said like, "Hey, we shot it this way to for that specific reason." But I really like that theory a lot, and that could very well be the case. You know?
well, this is what I think, and I actually tried to read up on how other people interpreted that just this past week,
Hmm.
and I was gratified to see that my theory was out there,
Oh, okay.
but also that it sort of serves a double meaning. You have maybe these wild effects that, I mean, honestly, as human beings, we cannot imagine what it would be like to be near something as big as the sun. How would that, we know that it would distort space and time. We know that. I don't know if the human brain could even handle that kind of distortion, even if it weren't a big ball of fire.
Right.
I don't know if we can survive that or comprehend it. But here's the other thing. It could just be representing the psychological confusion of someone who has been isolated away from every other human being and is going crazy, or at least they're having some kind of mental breakdown or disintegration. Because that's true too. That's I mean that's part of the movie. So it's kind of a weird effect visually that leaves it kind of open. Are we really seeing this? Are the
Is
are
it
the
subjective
crew
or is
members
it,
seeing it?
yeah,
Yeah, is it objective reality or is it not? And
mhm,
I like that it's that ambiguous
right.
because it heightens the tension and
It also definitely leaves aspects of the character up to the viewer's imagination as well, because I think because of that distortion effect, you never get like a true look at this character, and kind of
that's
their full
exactly right.
story.
You
So,
never get a clear shot of him, not
mm.
once in the movie.
So this character Pinbacker, played by Mark Strong.
The chameleon, Mark Strong.
Yes. If you want a bald bad guy in your films, that's your guy.
Can we just say he would make the best Lex Luthor ever?
Dude, that was yes. Oh my God. That was like I've been saying that for years. I don't you don't realize, dude. I'm like when people say like Willem Dafoe was like born to play the Joker and that's like the greatest casting that never happened just because the
Yeah, yeah,
picture
yeah.
of his face
He
looks like
has that
comic book Joker. I'm
angular
like
face. Yeah, yeah.
for me, Mark Strong is like as Lex Luthor is the greatest comic book casting that never happened. I'm like that dude is like literally like Lex Luthor taken from the comics in like physical form. Like I cannot think of he's too old now, unfortunately. He's like in his 60s, but it's like 10 years ago he would have been perfect, you know? Zack Snyder, what were you doing, man? Batman v Superman, he would have been great.
Ethan and I both saw a deleted scene with that character where you do get to see him clearly, and we were both agreed it's better they cut that out
Right.
because it kind of takes away some of the mystery and the
Mhm.
tension.
The reason why I think this deleted scene is better left out of the movie is because I think it paints Pinbacker as someone that can basically be reasoned with because he's just sitting there calmly talking to Kappa, almost like he's trying to teach him something, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And he's like lecturing him in that scene. And I think that leaving that out paints him as a character that is beyond reason at this point. Like he's truly just a broken man. Like he's been alone for I think 7 years.
For 7 years, I spoke with God.
He was the captain on the Icarus One, which was the first manned expedition to basically restart or pretty much reignite the sun. The sun is like fizzling out, right? I think it's set in this film's set in the year 2057, I believe, or 2058. It's in
Something
the
like that.
future.
Mhm.
All you need to know is there was a failed manned expedition to essentially reignite the sun. They lost contact with them 7 years ago. So because of that, they sent out another crew, which is the main crew that we follow in this movie. Something I wanted to bring up in this category is like the spacesuits. I feel like the spacesuits are heavily modeled after the spacesuits in 2001, just because like
Absolutely. Yep.
it's like the striking like gold, right?
They're similar to the NASA suits used in the moon landings. So if you go back and
Okay.
look at those, that they kind of have a similar look to them. They're very bulky, very,
Right.
very bulky.
Yeah.
Kappa has a hard time,
They almost kind of like hazmat suits.
and they're
Yeah,
made to feel very claustrophobic. At a
right.
couple of points in the film, they show inside the suit and the heavy
Yeah.
breathing and the
Yeah.
sweating and all that. And
Those shots made me really uncomfortable, especially when they're like, like closer to the sun and they're just,
yeah,
beating red and they're just sweating and all that stuff. And yeah. The suits are also very heavy, right? There was a moment in the third act when Kappa is trying to get into one of the spacesuits. I think he trips and falls at one point, but the suit's so heavy that he's not able to actually like push himself back up. So he has to use like a
right,
thruster in the suit to like boost himself back up.
right, yeah.
You know? So like it actually like physically hurts because of how heavy the suit is when he's like just trying to manually push himself up back.
Right, and I think in the ship they have the anti-gravity with the spinning section and
Right.
all that. But yeah, and that's it. It's very gritty and realistic, and just the struggles that he has with the suit.
It should be a surprise to no one for a movie called Sunshine that this is a very bright movie, you know. There are moments, there are plenty of scenes where the exposure is just at an all-time high, right? There are moments where I was just kind of squinting like, oh
Almost too
gosh,
too
like
much.
it's
It's
almost too
almost
much, you know.
painful. Yeah,
It is overwhelming.
it's a good creative choice.
Which I
Yeah,
which I love, you know what I mean?
yeah.
I love when movies kind of make disorient you like that and kind of just again make you feel like the characters do in that moment, right? Because anytime I'm like squinting like that, I'm like, I imagine it's kind of what the characters are going through somewhat. This is literally the equivalent of just walking outside at like 12 p.m. and like looking directly at the sun for too long. Like this
Yeah, yeah.
this is potentially a contender for like the brightest movie of all time. It really might be. You know,
Overexposure and
yeah,
lots
overexposure.
of lens flares,
Well,
lots of lens
yeah,
flares.
but they don't bother me in this. I think it works.
No, I'm just saying that's kind of
Yeah,
stylistically, you get a lot of lens flare.
right, right.
One thing is this concept of the sublime or the heavenly, where you have characters that believe that God is speaking to them.
Hmm.
You have characters that don't believe in God, and that's mentioned indirectly, I think. Maybe just suggested. You have characters that are um, sun worshippers.
But Curtis
Yeah,
seems
yeah,
to be
yeah.
on that track somewhat. I don't think he ever openly just kind of comes out and says it, but there are
It's
definitely some parallels between him and Pinbacker.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Searle, maybe his character, if he had continued over years, would have been ended up like Pinbacker.
Kind of like Searle, he, it's implied that he has stared at the sun without the screen protection for just
Several times,
years. Yeah,
at
for
least
over
several
over
times.
over years, over the span of a couple of years. 7 years, presumably, right? But
Well,
his skin is like all just melted. Like he's got fourth degree burns all over his body.
oh,
There's not a single inch of
Yeah.
his skin.
Yeah.
That it
Pinbacker is
even
completely, he is a
right,
burnt marshmallow.
right,
He is,
totally, yeah,
he is a burnt marshmallow. But you see that Searle is headed that direction. There is a shot, a close-up shot, where he's peeling his skin away. And it's kind of like, he has a sunburn? Why does he have a sunburn? And of course, later you realize, oh, he's Searle is addicted to
yeah.
sunburns.
Exposure to the sun. Potentially, there was a psychological effect from the
Hmm.
radiation,
Hmm.
or it was just the isolation over 7 years. It may have been a combination of things. The psychological impact of radiation, possibly from just exposure to the sun. I'm not sure if that's really how it works, but like that's just a theory I kind of have that potentially
Hmm.
could have caused some brain
We
damage.
have no idea what it's actually like for
I
living
think he
things to
could
be
have
that close
gotten a
to.
bit of a god complex also, but I also think it's he could have just lost all hope and became
Yeah.
like a nihilist where it was because he does mention that like it's not our place to interfere with
Who
God.
Yeah, who can
And I
question God if God has decided that the earth and humanity is over?
has got to
Who
go.
who are
Yeah.
we to argue with God?
So
Is
I
the
think it was a
question.
thing where it was like, we are destined to die and this whole mission is hopeless and it essentially is wrong for us to interfere with what is destined to happen.
I was going to say it's such a that's I think is such an important element of in the themes of the movie
Mm.
is, on the one hand, you have people that have given everything essentially over to science.
Right.
And Pinbacker has turned his back on science, has turned towards God, which has made him crazy and violent and self-destructive in an interesting way. But um, I mean, the real question is their faith in science, the crew, is that what saves humanity? You could argue,
Yeah, I don't know.
which is making a it's making a statement. There's also the idea of existential isolation. That's with not just Pinbacker, but the whole crew. They are cut off from the entire human race.
Mhm.
They know that they probably won't be coming home. There seems to be general acceptance that they're not going to make it home. There's all these different moments of people wrestling with sacrificing themselves for the sake of the mission. And and this is a very, as far as ethics go, it's a very utilitarian, strongly, heavily utilitarian point of view. It's okay to do whatever you need to do as long as the human race survives. So your personal sense of ethics become kind of irrelevant.
Right.
This is a dangerous idea,
Mhm.
but this is an illustration of, well, is there any other point of view that people would accept if you're on a mission like this? You have to be willing to kill, murder, torture, whatever it is to accomplish,
Right.
the survival of human race.
Right.
Your interests don't matter. People have asked whether this movie is glorifying sacrifice in the name of the greater good, or is it critiquing it and saying maybe that's not the right approach? Maybe um and actually Rose Byrne's character makes this really important statement. They are debating about whether to kill someone to so that the mission can continue, not because they've done anything wrong or anything,
Right.
but she says, I know that you're going to kill this person. You asked for a vote. I said no. You're going to do it anyway, but you still can't have my vote. It's like she's saying, I realize the inevitability of what's going to happen,
Mhm.
but her ethics are intact, and she is not going to participate in murdering a crew member.
But it does beg the question, are your ethics still intact if you choose not to
If
intervene?
you don't intervene,
You know what
yeah,
I
she's
mean?
not
If you
trying
let
to.
it happen, even though you disagree with it, that's, you know,
It's a good
interesting.
question.
What I find really interesting is the first time they have to kind of make a really tough decision. It's the scene where they get the distress call from Icarus One, and they make this they kind of debate whether it's worth making the pit stop to Icarus One because they can essentially get a second payload from Icarus One, assuming that they haven't already used theirs.
Right, right.
And they're going like two last chances are better than one last chance. So I understand the logic there. But what's interesting is they don't handle it in a very democratic way. Like it's
No,
not a democracy where they,
no.
they leave it up to a vote. They ask the person who's most qualified, which in this case it's Kappa, Cillian Murphy's character, which I find that very interesting, which I think for a situation like this makes the most sense because leaving it up to a vote, you're asking people who are not qualified to make that choice. And you, like you said, they're going to let their personal ethics go into their decision making, right?
And
Comes down to the vote,
it's
which is
very
bad in a
unfair.
situation like this because again, so much of it has to do with science, right? And you have people in different departments that aren't very knowledgeable about other people's departments and what they do.
It's very unfair to Kappa because even as he runs the simulations, say there's no possible way to know if this is even going to work. Either time, we don't know what's happened to the payload. We definitely don't know what's happened to the crew. There's all these unknowns, and yet the burden kind of falls on him to make the hard choice. And the captain says we're going to do what Kappa says because we're scientists and we're not. This isn't a democracy.
Right.
We're gonna make the best choice,
Mhm.
not the popular choice.
I'm pretty sure they leave it up to a vote when they have that moment where it's like we don't have enough oxygen to sustain the five of us. Benedict Wong's character has got to go because I'm not sure if his character made the choice to do this, but he's like just asleep all the time, like
Well,
he's
they
in
sedated
isolation.
him. He was sedated.
Sedated,
But
right? Because
so Searle
he's
gives
depressed,
him
he's guilt-ridden, I think he's suicidal too,
yeah,
right?
yeah, he's suicidal.
And when they find him, he's dead, which is really unfortunate. Um, Partially because I think they were suspecting that he was the one who
Yeah.
separated the
Yeah,
ships when
they're
they
not sure
boarded Icarus
what's
One.
happened there.
There's a moment when they board Icarus One where the ships, the bridge between the ships explodes, and basically they have no way to get back to their own ship, Icarus Two, right? And they have no idea who or what caused that, and their first suspect is Benedict Wong's character because I guess they haven't like
He's
modernized.
the only one back on the ship that's
Exactly,
not
exactly.
working
So,
and doing all the other stuff.
but it can't be him
But
because when they find him, he's dead, right?
well, no, no. I mean, he's already been in his quarters for a while. So I mean, it
Right.
could have been him, but
But it wasn't.
it's not until they find him dead and they believe he has committed suicide, um, which turns out probably not to be the case. This is the moment where when he is dead, they believe that they have solved the oxygen crisis. And
Mhm.
then they learn that they haven't
Right.
because there's another person on board they didn't even know was there.
4 crew could potentially survive on Current's
Trey is
reserves.
dead. There are only 4 crew members.
Negative.
Affirmative, Icarus 4 crew, Mace, Cassie, Carzon, and me.
5 crew members.
Icarus.
Yes.
Who's the 5th crew member?
Unknown.
Where is the 5th crew member?
In the observation room.
We go from a almost an adventure movie. You're dealing with all these different crises, but ultimately it's a scientific expedition and it's straightforward. And, yes, we're learning things along the way. There's some questions that are unanswered. And then you get to the third act, and we're now basically in a horror movie.
Yeah, it's a survival horror.
Survival
Almost
horror.
like a
Yeah.
survival horror game, somewhat.
Yeah.
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 It's a bunch of people on a ship, and there's a threat that they don't like have the location of the threat. It really is just kind of running around the ship, and it's picking off people one by one, and it
Mhm.
reminds me a lot of the first Alien somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah.
This section of the movie.
That's what I think really starts to feel like Event Horizon, because
Totally.
people are not only just dying, they're dying in different ways
Mhm.
and horrible, different, extreme, very extreme. I mean, everything about the circumstances they're in are extreme. We're talking about, are we going to save the human race? But then, you're having people die extreme cold, extreme heat, uh, the sun's full blast radiation hitting people unprotected. Um, there's a lot of interesting ways to die in space.
Right.
Another really powerful thing about the third act is how extreme the distortion of space and time and the physicality of everything going on, and you know people being in cooling fluid and vacuum of space, and literally jumping towards the sun,
Right.
out of a spaceship. It's just so I can't think of another movie
Yeah.
that goes that hard.
Not only does it kind of take a bit of a detour into horror, I think for me it feels a lot like a slasher movie. I'm not saying that to bash it, but no, like
Yeah, no,
you
there's
basically
elements of
have
that.
Pinbacker in a lot of ways fits kind of the archetype of a classic slasher villain. He's kind of this unstoppable force who's just kind of roaming around, and he never runs throughout. That's kind of like classic slasher
Never
villain,
runs. You
like
never
technique.
see him until it's too late.
Exactly.
He's always
He
just
kind
lurking.
of power walking the whole movie. It reminds me a lot of like Jason Voorhees, Michael
Mm,
Myers,
yeah,
like they never
that's
run, and they somehow still always catch up to people. And I think it's because they just always have the element of surprise. They're just really good at hiding, and they use kind of the shadows to their advantage
mm.
and all that. I have an interesting theory on one aspect of the movie. I didn't really even think of this until my second viewing, but the moment he steps out onto like the deck, right, the viewing deck, and sees Pinbacker for the first time. Well, you can't really see him that well because the sun is like shining.
Yeah, yeah. They don't let us see
But the
him.
first time he encounters him, right, Pinbacker's first words to him are you an angel? He asks him a question.
Right.
As someone who's taken writing classes and just written a couple of scripts myself, the important thing that I've been taught is like don't have a character say something significant like that unless it means something. I
Yeah.
think the only other thing I could think of is like write that if a character's like being sarcastic or something, right? But obviously in this moment it's not meant to be funny. Part of me really thinks that in this moment Pinbacker thought he might have been in heaven at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
Because at
yeah.
this point, he has separated the Icarus 1 and Icarus 2. I don't think he knows the crew from the Icarus 2 have made it back to the ship yet. My assumption is he's been on the viewing deck this entire time since he went from Icarus 1 to Icarus 2 and separated both ships,
Well,
right?
he's already killed Trey.
Exactly. He probably thinks he's alone on that ship. And at that point, since he's that close to the sun, he might think he's already dead. He sees Cillian Murphy walk
Hmm.
out. There is definitely something angelic about uh Cillian Murphy's character's appearance.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think it may have been a literal like question like are you an angel? Am I in heaven right now?
Right, right. No, I agree with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's how
Hmm.
I took it. Because he, and he has his little monologues where he's like, um, when uh, there'll be a point at which every human being will be dead except one,
Mhm.
and that person will be alone with God. And so he's wanting to know, has he achieved,
Right.
the final battle royale? Is he the last one standing?
There is an early hint, by the way, that there is another passenger on the ship, which I noticed on the second viewing, which I thought was kind of cool. It's right before they discover Benedict Wong's character dead, and they look through. It's when Chris Evans is going in to basically kill Benedict Wong's character before he knows that Benedict Wong is
Hmm.
actually dead already. But he goes in to get this like electric like syringe. It's like a weapon.
Yeah, it's a
Shit.
scalpel.
It's an electric scalpel, right?
Mhm.
And there's like a box set of like 5 or 6 that they have, and there's two that's missing. Not just one, there's two missing.
That's
And
right.
so it does give the hint that like Benedict Wong took one, but it's like who took the other one, right? So that's kind of weird. Um, anyways,
Yeah,
just a
it's
little
a
little
very nice detail there.
yeah. I didn't really pick up on that the first time, but
Mm,
I
mm.
appreciated it.
I forgot about that. You're right. And scalpels don't need to be electric, but
Yeah, that was a weird
they,
like
they
fictional
do they do
item.
work without vibrating.
Yeah,
It's not exactly a toothbrush,
right. Yeah,
but
I can't really
it's
yeah.
so. All right. Well, thank you all for staying with us. If you made it this far, we appreciate you, and you are elite. Um, and
Pat yourself on the back.
yes, pat yourself on the back, have a piece
Yeah.
of cake. Um, and I hope that you'll share this with some friends and frenemies and colleagues and well-wishers and neighbors and homeless people so that we can build up our audience and quit our jobs before AI murders us
Kills us
all
all.
in
Yep.
2027
Or blows up the sun.
or blows up the sun. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Film Yappers. We appreciate your support, which you can show by subscribing to the channel, clicking the thumbs up like button below, and sharing with your friends, neighbors, and cousins. We will see you on the next episode of the Film Yappers.